Let's talk the preseason poll. So the preseason poll, number 10, Tennessee. So Tennessee is kind of I'm kind of torn with Tennessee this year. Was last year kind of like we talk about Texas A&M having the year in 2020. That was kind of the outlier year with Jimbo Fisher and A&M. Was last year kind of an outlier year for Josh Heupel in Tennessee, and they kind of go back to being, maybe they're still good, maybe a 7-8 win 9 team, but. And last year was kind of the outlier year where you have an NFL-level quarterback. You hit on some key transfer guys. Was last year the outlier year? Tennessee, to me, was one of the top 10 teams that I think maybe could really fall off. And then number 9, Clemson. So Clemson I was really high on, but then the more I kind of look at Clemson, the more I kind of go, yeah, the more I'm kind of just on the fence with Clemson. I think Peter Wood's an incoming freshman, talented player. I think he's got some ability, some high-end ability. I think he could be an elite difference maker, maybe a guy that's drafted number 1 defensive tackle off the board in a few years. But I think with Clemson, I think that this year will be a lot more of the same as last year. Or maybe it's they win the conference title, but they still drop a couple games, maybe a couple they shouldn't. So, yeah, that's Clemson, I'm a little weary of. But yeah, I'm struggling with Clemson because, I think Cade Klubnik's a good player, but is he an elite? Is he an NFL elite difference maker at quarterback? I think Cade Klubnik. I think when his career's done, I think he'll go down as a good college quarterback. But I don't know if he has necessarily an elite skill set because he's a guy who I think. With his work ethic, he's going to keep getting better and better and be a good college player. But to me, guys that are elite NFL quarterbacks, you see their ability right away. Caleb Williams, you saw his ability right away. Trevor Lawrence, you saw his ability right away. You knew that they had potential down the road to be an NFL top quarterback in the draft and a guy that could really become a game changer, not just in college football, but in the NFL. So I don't know if I see that with Klubnik, even though he has bulked up, he has improved, throws the ball a little bit better. I don't know if Cade Klubnik is a true NFL difference maker. And not that you can't win a national title with a good college quarterback. I think it really just puts a little bit of, it kind of lowers the ceiling for the team. It makes it so Clemson's going to have a better all-around team around him. And I think Clemson would have, for Clemson to win it this year with Cade Klubnik at quarterback, they would probably have to have the teams like they had in 2018. And it's not every year you have a team like that. I know, Barrett Carter's an NFL caliber linebacker. I think Trotter is too. I'm trying to draw on a blank. I think Antonio Williams is an NFL receiver. I think they have enough difference makers to be really good, but I think to me, this is another year like last year. Clemson probably wins the ACC and but just does not. They drop a couple games that kind of hold them back from being a national title contender. And then the Florida State Seminoles. So Florida State, well, to me, kind of like USC, they've done more than I thought as far as bringing in high-end talent via the transfer portal. A guy like Braden Fisk is a really nice player from Western Michigan. Fabian Lovett, good defensive tackle. I think Jordan Travis is a guy like Klubnik, who I don't think is an NFL-level quarterback, but a guy that seems to get better each year, and a guy that it seems like he just kind of is slowly figuring things out, like how to win, how to play in this offense. So Jordan Travis, good quarterback. I think talking true NFL, true difference makers, Jared Verse, certainly that guy with a question around Lovett and Fisk. I actually would say Fisk I'd put a question on Lovett. So two true difference makers defensively, experience at linebacker, an offensive line that I think should be improved, and then difference makers potentially, I would say one, maybe two. I would say two, Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. Or no, three, and Jaheim Bell. So difference makers at the receiving positions, at the skill position, and then also Trey Benson at running back. So, yeah, I mean, difference makers offensively. To me, Florida State's kind of in a position like Oregon. Difference makers on the offensive side of the ball. I know I've said that a couple times, but defensively, defensively, I think they're going to be solid overall. I just don't think, like, even with Jared Verse and Fisk, and even if Lovett takes another step, I think it is kind of a far cry that Lovett will be a difference maker. Even if Verse and Fisk are difference makers defensively, does the rest of the defense carry its weight, and the rest of the defense, can they improve just a little bit? I think even with that little improvement, and you combine the talent they have on offense, I don't think it is enough for Florida State to win a national title. Now, is it enough for them to win the ACC? Yes. I think Florida State is an ACC title contender, and like I've touched on, I think they do have enough high-end talent offensively to win a to win the ACC and be a high, potent offense. But yeah, Florida State, maybe with that, I am talking myself into Florida State being a national title contender. I think that, I feel kind of the same way about them as Oregon. I think they're a conference title contender, but a national title contender, maybe still a year or two away. Penn State at number 7. So I'll say that, I'll side note about this, I think this coach's poll is dead on. I think Penn State, Penn State maybe could be lower, but Penn State is an interesting team. Talent at left tackle. I mean, Olu Fashanu is one of the best tackles in college football, probably the best tackle. I know he's got a skill set that a lot of NFL people really like. I'm not sure what the NFL scouts are saying about him, but the NFL draft media is really high on Olu Fashanu. I'm high on him. I wish he had a better anchor. I think his strength overall is good. It's maybe not elite, but his quickness off the snap, footwork, getting into excellent position is really good. So I think Penn State's going to be a really good team. I don't know. To me, they're just in a tough position with Michigan, Ohio State to win the Big Ten. So, but I guess the good thing for Penn State is if they can beat Michigan and/or Ohio State and win the Big Ten, then they're likely just that good, and they likely are a legit national title contender. So Penn State going to be a really good team this year. Talent returning, Drew Aller at quarterback. He should have more upside than even what was the guy last? Sean Clifford, and then talent at running back, explosive talent. Katron Allen. Nick Singleton, really good players defensively. Have some talent defensively. Kalen King, one of the best corners in college football. So, I like Penn State. I don't necessarily love this roster. I think that there is difference makers on both sides of the ball, but I think kind of like with Florida State, you have difference makers on both sides of the ball, but does the rest of the guys outside of the difference makers, do they carry enough weight to make this a high-end level team overall? I think that's the question for Penn State, and we'll find out. And kind of like USC, I think they want to improve in the trenches, but I don't know if they did enough overall to dramatically improve in the trenches, kind of like USC. Number 6, USC, I touched on. USC, we talked a lot of USC earlier. But USC comes in at number 6, and I think that, a lot of people are like, is USC a national title contender? And USC is the popular team to make the playoff for the first time since we switched to the playoff format. But I'm buying USC as a team that can make the playoff. I don't know. It's a different story whether they can compete with a team like Alabama in Georgia in the trenches for 4 quarters. But USC, as far as difference makers and improvement in the trenches, USC is a legit Pac-12 title contender. My pick to win the Pac-12. LSU comes in at number 5. So on my Bayou Bengals channel, I talk all LSU, and LSU, to me, with Mason Smith back on the defensive line, I think is critical for the LSU Tigers. I think that'll make a huge difference on this LSU defense. Harold Perkins is going to fly around, making plays, making tackles, going to save so much yardage over the course of a season with that ability. So, LSU is going to be a really, really good football team this year, and I think they're deep with their improvements defensively and just improvements overall. Year 2 under Brian Kelly, a lot of things just moving in the right direction for LSU. And to me, LSU is a team I almost am I'd like to bet on to win the national title, and they are the perfect contrarian pick outside of like Alabama, Georgia, the usual suspects, just because of all the things they've done in the transfer portal, all the good things Brian Kelly's done, the improvement at the end of last year, even though they lost a few games and they lost to Georgia, but the way they finished in that bowl game and the way they played at times, or played for the most part, upset win against Alabama, that's really got them believing. So a lot of reason to buy into LSU as a national title contender. So we'll see what happens. Number 4, Ohio State. And a lot of the reason people are believing in Ohio State is the NFL talent they have across their team. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau. I think Tuimoloau maybe getting a little bit overhyped, but he is an athlete nonetheless. Tommy Eichenberg, one of the best linebackers in college football. So yeah, Ohio State, NFL guys, Denzel Ward at corner. Ohio State, can they beat Michigan is the main question this year. If they can beat Michigan this year, you got to feel like that win would, they'd already, because going into Michigan, Ohio State, their talent is so superior to the Big Ten. You got to believe they're going to go into the Michigan game 10-1, 11-0 once again. So if they beat Michigan, Ohio State likely a shoe-in the Big Ten championship, and they should be a team that is a lock in the playoff. But can they compete with Georgia and Alabama? I'm going to say yes, just because all the NFL talent. They've lost some guys up front: Luke Whippler, DeJuan Jones, Paris Johnson. So you lose some key guys in the trenches. But Ohio State, I think they've done a good job of recruiting the O-line. I think, does the D-line continue to improve? You got guys like Michael Hall, Tyleik Williams. Do those guys take another step, especially a guy like Michael Hall? Does he take another step in his improvement? So yeah, Ohio State, I do like this year. I just do, they're just, that is the burning question is can they beat Michigan? And if they do so, who would they match up? Is it Georgia, LSU, or Alabama? How would they match up with them once again? So those are the two main questions with LSU. Can they beat Michigan? And if they do have another matchup with a Georgia, Alabama, LSU, a team that's really good at the line of scrimmage from the SEC, how would they do? And what players take the next step in their development? Guys like Michael Hall, Tyleik Williams, Denzel Burke. So yeah, those are the three main questions I have for Ohio State. So, but even though I have questions for Ohio State, there is a lot of certainty that they are going to be a really good football team this year. Number 3, Alabama. So Alabama. The more you kind of look at Alabama this year, the more you kind of like them. The more they're kind of a little under the radar. I say under the radar, they do come in at number 3, but you got guys that kind of like Ohio State. You got NFL difference makers, Kool-Aid McKinstry, J.C. Latham. You look at Ja'Cory Brooks, a guy like a receiver. So you have guys like that, but who are guys that take the next step? Jahad Campbell at linebacker is a big-time recruit. Nick Saban was giving him high praise. Does he take another step in his development? So you look at a guy like that. Does he could be a key difference maker? Deontay Lawson at linebacker, a guy that played well for him last year. Who really takes another step on the D line? Tim Smith, a good player, but who is the game changer on the defensive line? And then Malachi Moore, a guy that's played pretty well for him. Does he continue to get better? Does he have do all things really come together for him this year? Flashed as a freshman back in 2020. So yeah, Alabama, there's a lot of things to like about this football team, but they're kind of like Ohio State. There's just a few question marks. There is enough uncertainty that really is the reason why they're I think that's the reason Alabama and Ohio State are 3 and 4, but just because they're going to be good, NFL talent, recruited well, good coaches, a lot of certainty, but just a few minor question marks. Then number 2, Michigan Wolverines. So as a Michigan football fan, I'll say this. I want to believe Michigan should be the number 2 ranked team. I want to believe that they can compete with a Georgia, Alabama, if they were to meet them in the first round or in the national championship. But I think Michigan is just still lagging a little bit at the line of scrimmage. And I say that they've been the Joel Moorhead winner for the best offensive line, but it seems like they just have, Michigan, with the exception of, maybe this year is the exception, when they match up with a Georgia, Alabama, they do not have enough difference makers to kind of overcome that. It kind of reminds me of, if you look at Clemson, when Clemson beat Alabama with Deshaun Watson. Now, Alabama had the edge at the line of scrimmage, but Watson was such a superior difference maker in NFL talent, and they had NFL difference makers at the skill position, it can kind of overcome not winning the line of scrimmage. Michigan, to me, that's the question for Michigan. Do they have enough difference makers at the skill positions to overcome maybe being a little less talented at the line of scrimmage of a Georgia, Alabama, or LSU if they were to meet them in a playoff? That's the main question to me. Is J.J. McCarthy, does he take another step this year? And is he such an exceptional talent that they could overcome a game where they are not the superior team at the line of scrimmage? So that's the question for Michigan. And then they need some guys to kind of take the next step. Will Campbell, elite talent at corner, does he take the next step? The depth at corner, a little bit of a question. I know they brought in Josh Wallace from UMass. So, yeah, Michigan, there's high-end talent, but they've proven that they're going to be really good, kind of like Ohio State, but can they take the next step here? And does this team truly go out and prove that this is Jim Harbaugh's best year? And does this team have the ability to be the exception team where it all comes together and they can win a national title? I think my answer would be no. I don't think Michigan can win a national title this year, but I'll say this. They do have all things in place to kind of be the exception outlier year. And this is likely, in my opinion, Harbaugh's most talented year, but they do have to go and prove it. Harbaugh suspended the first 4 games. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with Michigan. Number 1 team is the Georgia Bulldogs. So, Georgia, I guess simply put, there's no reason why. I know you could argue Georgia's not the number 1 team, but there's no reason why Georgia shouldn't be the preseason number 1 team. They've won the national title back-to-back years. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but yeah, Georgia is still very talented, and they do actually quietly return a lot of guys that were very impactful from last year's team. Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey. They have talent at the line of scrimmage. Cedric Van Pran, maybe the best center and interior lineman in college football, one of the top draft-eligible guys. You look at defensively strong linebacker core with experience, and guys like Dumas Johnson, Small Munden, a strong secondary in Malachi Starks, Javon Bullard, a versatile guy that can play slot or nickel corner and can drop deep into coverage. So, with that being said, I mean, the difference makers they have, offense, defense, at the line of scrimmage, quarterback, just a question, kind of like Alabama and Ohio State, a few small question marks, but they're going to be really good. And, with high-end quarterback play, you got to believe that's probably one of the main ingredients that would put Georgia over the top to win another national title. But, yeah, I'm going to wrap with that. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Brant Parcell Show. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.